Welcome to Mentor. I'm Rachel Ford.
And I'm Marco Bertozzi.
And today we have got a brilliant guest coming up. Dags, as he's fondly known. And, God, we talked about a lot, didn't we? But what I got from it was the power of serendipity, which is one of my favourites. I like to be in the right place at the right time. But also...
That's FOMO.
Oh, is it? Yeah, actually, I just like to be everywhere, don't I? Sorry. But actually, quite a deep conversation around when faced with adversity about walking towards it.
I'm a huge advocate for that.
Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And there was a lighter moment.
Yeah, there was.
So do stay tuned to find out what the connection is between Dags' mother-in-law's Muff and Prince Harry.
Yeah, that was an interesting story. Yeah, but before we do dive into Dags, what have you been up to, Mark?
Well, this week I did a Speakers for Schools presentation, which I've done for years and years and years and years, and it's interesting how you've got to think about what advice you give, because the world's changing a bit around, how the younger generation sees work, and I think I'm still presenting the older version, which is work hard, be in the office and all that. And I realise it went out of fashion, but I've now put it back in as something that I think is really important. But we're not going to get into the office versus work from home thing. But it's an interesting when you think about what advice you're giving younger kids.
Great. Okay. Well, shall we welcome Dags in?
Let's go.
Welcome Dags. Okay, so our guest today is media sales veteran Simon Daglish, OBE, no less, or Dags, as he is widely and fondly known in the industry. Alongside his senior role at ITV, he is co-founder of the Walking with the Wounded military charity, is chairman of NABS, the charity for mental well-being in the advertising industry. And he has walked unsupported to the North and South Pole, not once, but twice. Rode across the Irish Sea. I think that was quite a treacherous return journey, I think I remember.
Was that twice as well?
Twice.
Everything twice. Did you miss things the first time? You just thought...
Yeah, he took the scenic route. Scenic route next time.
We did.
And you've also completed the ultra marathon, the Marathon de Sable, which is 7. Is it 7 marathons in
6 marathons in 5 days across the desert.
I've seen a documentary on that. It looks...
You lose toenails, don't you?
You do lose toenails, amongst other things. And also, I actually took my my eldest son was the youngest person in the world to do it.
Yes,
so
I do remember. Wow!
Wow. How old?
16.
Gosh.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's following in his father's footsteps, because I when I read all this, I thought you were a living, breathing Superman, and so we are very delighted.
Welcome
to have you here. We're really delighted.
I'm not sure Superman was ever bald and nearly 60, was he? But anyway,
underneath all that gear,
yeah. So we are really delighted. We're delighted to have you here. How's your week?
Yeah, good week. Do you know what? This is going to sound awful, but it's been a slightly extraordinary week. So Monday, or was it Tuesday? I can't remember. Monday or Tuesday, I presented a new strategy to the what do you call the executive leadership team at ITV about a new division, which I won't go into now, that we're putting together, which is really exciting and went down well. Then I went to a fantastic talk with Scott Galloway and Roy Sutherland on Tuesday night, which was just fascinating. Yesterday morning, I spent the morning with the Queen.
The Queen?
The Queen.
As you do.
Yeah, as you do.
We're going tomorrow, right?
Yeah. Wow. Which is a bit of an unusual... That is unusual, by the way. I don't normally spend my Thursday mornings with the Queen. But that was for ITV's 70th. And then today, I'm here with you.
Yeah, wow.
That's rather fun.
When you reflect back on your week, what do you think would be the highlight?
Well, I always look forward.
You'll tell us in 40 minutes, won't you?
There is... Based on that intro and that week, there's, I think it's not unfair to say that there's so much about you and your life and career, but we shall start with giving you an opportunity to talk about career, and we always do our 60 seconds, we give or take, just to give anyone who doesn't know you really well a bit of background on sort of who you are and how you got here.
Okay, first thing to start is I'm not an academic. So I left school with 5 O-levels and no A-levels.
Great.
Went into the army. As everybody knows, I'm not an academic. So I went to the army, came out of the army, then went to work in the early days of Fleet, or the dying days of Fleet Street, sort of running copy from one end of the desk to the other, which most people listening won't know what I'm talking about. Then went into sales in newspapers. Then I set up my own company. By the age of about 25, 26, sold that company, was very well off. Yes.
Wow.
What was that company?
It was a publishing company called it was actually called Rugby News, but Brackenby Publishing was a subsidiary. Sold it to Tony O'Reilly. I made a lot of money.
At 26?
26, 27, I can't remember the actual date. Wow. By the time I was 28, I was bankrupt. Literally bankrupt. I handed the keys of my house over to the bailiff and walked away. So I was bankrupt. And then I was knocking around looking for something to do. And a mate of mine had gone into Classic FM, the early days of Classic FM, which is the most bonkers idea to play music by dead blokes to people who are nearly dead. And so I joined that, and it became incredibly successful, as you know. Not due to me, but it did. And then we bought we merged with Capital, built GCAP, which we then sold to Global. I then was less successful, went to MySpace. Not the greatest move.
Oh my gosh.
And then at MySpace, Fru Has It was my old boss at GCAP, took over at ITV and said, do I want to go and join ITV and see if we can, I say turn it round. It was a very robust company, but it wasn't a very good time at that moment in time. And myself and my dear friend Kelly Williams went in there to do our best with the commercial side of ITV, which so far, touch wood, has been all right.
And you're still there at the duo, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, very much so. Yeah,
There's
it's
a
been
few
14
duos
years.
across the industry and it's just my reflection, but they seem to be. It doesn't mean you don't have any stress or different, but they seem to be the happiest.
You're in it together
in work.
Yeah.
When I think when I think about versus all our senior execs we know in platforms and whatever who are just under. Sort of, they're always looking over their shoulder a bit because there's just so much going on in those worlds.
Well, the top's a lonely place. I don't mean that I'm the top of the top, but the top is a lonely place.
Yeah.
And if you have somebody who sits alongside you, I think that makes it a lot easier because whatever happens to you in the day, as long as you trust and admire the person you're sitting alongside with, you can talk to them about anything, so you can share all the issues out. And I think it works really well.
Yeah, because I wouldn't actually, obviously this podcast is called Mentor, but do you think you, on almost on a daily basis, you are mentoring each other?
God, that's an interesting thought.
I don't know.
I've never thought of it that way. I think we're sharing problems. Yeah. Is that the same thing?
I don't know.
Well,
I mean, that's I suppose it's advice, isn't it?
Well,
How do you deal with things? And I don't know. I mean, I just thought about that.
Well, I think we're yin and yang. Kelly's much more intelligent than me by long chalk, and certainly can do a lot more. What's the right word? He can read through spreadsheets and remember all the numbers, whereas I read through them and just see a jungle of numbers and can't do anything. But then, I guess counter to that, a lot of things are. I try to look ahead and have visions about things. I can see where we want to go. Yeah. I know how to get there, but I don't necessarily always get the bricks in the right places to get there. Yeah. And sitting with Kelly, he's much more logical and forensic and detailed in his approach than I am.
Well, I think that first of all, that's obviously why it's successful because that you complement each other. But it's funny because I think earlier in not your career, in one's career, there's this sort of feeling that you've got to do everything and you've got to know everything. And it's interesting as you get more senior, you realise what you need is people around you to fill in your gaps. And you play to your strengths and then get people around you that are going to help complement.
But that's why you need diversity of thought. And it's like your superpower is different to Kelly's, and that's why it works.
Absolutely. I learnt sort of fairly late in my career, really, that being a leader isn't doing everything. Being a leader is
Yes.
actually leading people to do everything. If you see what I mean. Yes, you can have a vision, you can and you can have goals and ambitions for your team, but ultimately, to make that happen, it has to be the team around you that does all the does all the. I say does all the work. It sounds like you sit there doing nothing, but you know what I mean. Implements everything and make sure. And if you allow them the freedom to do that, they will do it an awful lot better than you telling them to do it, because you've employed them for that reason. So let them do it.
Yeah, and also give them the confidence. Like
completely.
you've got you've got the resources, and then they can thrive in that environment. But it's a trust thing, though, isn't it? You've got to, and as a leader, you've got to have that confidence as well to trust the team.
Well, I mean, it's in, for me, there's a lovely. She's now at another TV station, to be unnamed, but a lady called Sam Hicks, who has worked with me in 4 different jobs. And the reason for that was because I was probably maybe a bit closer to you in terms of I could have ideas and set a sort of goal for where we wanted to go, but I was a bit shit at making it happen.
The detail.
Is that why you got Rachel?
We're two the same.
Yeah, unfortunately, we are slightly. Yeah, we need someone else to do the detail, don't we?
But it is, and that it's when you get that right, when you get that combination right, then it's really powerful because you
and you have to trust them. Literally, you have to trust them. I trust every single one of my team. And quite a lot of the time, in your head, you disagree with what they're doing. But you keep quiet because maybe they're right. And so you let it play out. And if it doesn't play out right, then you correct it. But don't, unless it's really fundamentally wrong, then allow them the ability to do it. Either you might not believe it could be done slightly different. But funny enough, I learned that very early in my career. There's a guy who I don't know if he works in the industry, called Fraser Heaviside.
I used to work with Fraser.
Fraser? Well, you know Fraser. He's quite quiet. He's a very quiet guy.
He's still a publicist.
Is he? Is he? Quite quiet. And he was one of my sales team at Classic FM back in the day. And he was a very quiet guy. And obviously, salespeople tend to be more exuberant, gregarious. And Fraser is the opposite of that. So I hope Fraser doesn't mind me talking about him. But we went to Zenith, your old pad, yes. To do a presentation, and there's Fraser, and he's presenting very quietly and very methodically, and I'm looking around I'm thinking, fucking hell. Sorry, should I say that? Sorry,
yes, you can. It's all right.
Fucking hell, where's the energy here? Where's the energy? Come on, Fraser, give it some. And then I looked, and around the room, every single person was hanging off his every word.
Yeah, they were listening.
Because every word was specially chosen and was very, very, very well articulated. His sentences were well. I thought, Jesus, that's a completely different way to the way I do it. But it works.
Yeah.
So let him do it. Anyway.
And I think that is the shame, because we won't name names, but there's someone else who's a bit like that, who I remember when I was running new business at Zenith, I didn't do it very well, actually. We didn't win a lot of business. I'll tell you about Build a Bear. That's a famous story now. But there were. It was always like, who's going to present well? Versus who was actually the best person to talk about this topic.
Completely.
And I think that's a real shame. And it wasn't just it wasn't an agency thing. I think almost clients kind of expected to have this, very polished presentation that people. But I think it's.
Well, it's style over substance, isn't it? It's like what you kind of need the both.
You do. You do.
But that's interesting about Fraser. Yeah, we're very fond. I'm sure.
I haven't spoken to Fraser for about 30 years.
Oh, well, he'll be very happy to come.
He'll be like, I've got a name check. And do you think? So I think as a leader, obviously you allow your teams a space, and I think what I was hearing was, learn through their own mistakes. I mean, you want things to work, but actually sometimes you can learn through your mistakes as much as you can your successes. I suppose going back to the walking with the wounded in the North Pole, if I think about walking and the South Pole twice, like I'm thinking of now about resilience as a team. Like, have those expeditions really helped you then? How you brought that back to the office?
Well, look, I'm not sure. To do those sort of trips, you need to have some embedded resilience in you anyway. So you don't suddenly learn it when you're stuck on a frozen ice sheet. Oh, I'm resilient. I suppose you
Good
get
job.
Thanks. Yeah. I'll wear my gloves anyway. Look, I'll tell you the story. So the truth about my career is that I never ever really had any ambition in my career at all, as long as, and I've said this a number of times, as long as I had enough money to drink beer, eat pizza and watch telly, that was fine. That was just
a good place to start.
Yeah, I'll be happy with that. And then, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but then obviously, you get responsibilities. And my youngest son was born, Felix, and Felix was born with brain hemorrhage and is a quadriplegic as a result. So he's confined to a wheelchair. And will never live a normal life, and I think that sort of brought an area of responsibility to me as a person, and I think also when a child is diagnosed, he was diagnosed at about 6 months, and because of the development of the child, is you don't know how that disability will manifest itself, whether it be severe, mild, or very little. So you have sort of 2 or 3 years of trying to watch this child. Does it move? Can it move its arm? Can it do this? Yeah. So you don't know. So it's a great period of worry. And I think myself and my wife were probably quite depressed, if I'm honest with you. And you realise that actually there's nothing you can do about the situation. So you're angry, pissed off, why me, but that's such a destructive thing, why me? So you have to come out of it. Well, you didn't have to, but the best way to get out of it is I can't do anything about that, but I can do something about something else. Yeah. And to make life better, use this as a launch pad to make life better. And we were sitting in a room, myself and a couple of mates, and there's a guy called Professor Andy Sheldon, who was doing research at Thomas's Hospital for premature birth, which is what Felix was. He was born at 25 and a bit weeks, so it's very young. He was the size of your hand. Anyway, and he was looking for this drug to, as he put it, keep the little buggers in. And he needed about £1 million to test a drug. And I kind of said, well, working with the Tommy's charity, I'll get you £1 million. So one boasts over dinner. No idea how I'm going to get £1 million. I'll get you £1 million. It's not a problem. And then out of that, how the fucking hell am I going to get £1 million? Talking to an explorer called Penhado, who then said that nobody had been to the South Pole since 1911 when Scott did it using the same kit he did it in. And so we came up with this idea, myself and some mates I was in the army with, that what we'd do is we'd recreate Scott's journey down to the stitching on your sleeping bag.
Oh, my goodness.
To the South Pole. Wow. Obviously not on the way back, because that's when you die. At least he did. So we just went there. And so we created this first South Pole expedition using exactly the same kit, which was fascinating and interesting. Wow. And raised the million. Well, we didn't quite got 980,000, but hey, which is not far off. So that's how we got the first fantastic. Million. And I think what that taught me, if you're talking about resilience, is actually if you run towards adversity, run away from it, actually you're much more resilient.
Right.
So I always say to people, run towards adversity. I mean, don't go seeking problems or fights. That's just stupid.
Yeah.
But if you see something and you're able to get over it yourself, or with the help of others, you are better off. You are stronger. Yeah. Never be a victim. Yes. If you're a victim, you're going backwards.
Yeah.
Always try to get over those problems, whatever they're big or small. And that then builds your resilience, and it builds your belief to say, well, I can do something else. And then obviously we said, right, we're going to go to the North Pole with a bunch of, legless and armless soldiers. Mildly stupid, but
with up-to-date kit, hopefully.
Yeah, very much up-to-date kit. Although there was one guy, Jacko Van Gass, I hope he won't mind me telling this story, but he had lost his arm, most of his arm, just had a stump just above his elbow, and we couldn't keep the stump warm, so we got a wine cooler.
What?
And sewed it on and adapted, and it worked very well.
Did it?
Yeah, there you go.
And
that's not very modern kit, but it worked very well.
Well, and didn't you take your grandma's? No, not your grandma's.
My grandma's muff. Yeah, I knew. Yeah, we were talking about this out there.
But it was just
There's a bit. I think what you're referring to. I know what you're referring to is that on that North Pole trip, when we set up Walking with the Wounded, which was to rehabilitate soldiers back into civilian life that were wounded from Afghanistan, through various contacts, which I won't go into now, but we managed to persuade Prince Harry to come along. And he very joyfully came along. And I think he's written in his book, which I haven't read, about
Elizabeth Arden Cream.
Elizabeth Arden Cream and his frostbitten knob. And look, he wrote that. I didn't. Yeah. But anyway, there is a bit more to that story, which I will tell you, which is my mother-in-law, who's a very lovely lady, said before she left, she said that her mother had a thing, I think we're discussing, it's called a muff.
It's a muff.
It is called a
furry muff.
A furry muff, which was made of fox hair, which in the olden days, in the sort of, I guess, post-Victorian era, you put your hands into. Yes. It's like a sausage to keep them warm. She said, you must take this fox hair off the pot, it might come in useful. And I was, oh, God, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. Anyway, I had it in my bag. Anyway, when Harry did have his, unfortunately, cold crown jewels, we cut this fox hair up and sewed it onto the inside of his pants to keep it warm. So it's true to say that Harry had his knob in my mother's
we never
muff.
Thought we were going to be. We never thought we'd be talking about that.
No, here you are. Yes, you are listening to Mentor.
Probably get sued for that. But anyway,
what can you learn?
It's factually correct. Listen, everything in this podcast is fact checked.
You're going to struggle to fact check that.
Sorry to jump around, but you said so much in the first bit that it just sort of got. I think it is a really relevant topic for a lot of people. You obviously said you went into work, there wasn't no university and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I'm interested in, and I think, so my impression would be that was more normal then.
Yes.
A lot of people went into media, or in advertising through. It's becoming, then it feels like it went through a stage where no one did a print, it was graduates. You had to be a graduate. And now, obviously, I think people are trying to work a bit harder to allow it again, but not necessarily doing a great job of it. But, when you think of now, perhaps, where do you stand on that? Like, how would you think about it if in your business it's like you have to be a graduate and
No, I mean, we took out the you have to be a graduate way back. Principally because I remember Fru Hazlitt, you're talking about mentors, my great guru. She once pulled me aside and said, Dags, do you know, neither you nor I went to university, and we have 6 people who either went to Oxford or Cambridge who work for us. And I thought, well, actually, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
It doesn't. You don't necessarily need.
The qualifications doesn't mean that you'd.
Well, I mean, it doesn't in our role, I don't think particularly. Obviously in medicine or science or the STEM subjects it does, but not in our role. So, look, I'm really interested in the person. I'm not interested. As long as they can read and write and add up, that's about all I really care about. Then it's about the individual, who they are, what they are, whether their particular characteristics can I was going to say fit in. I don't want them to fit in. I want them to fit a role within our team that we don't currently have. And that comes back to the point about diversity. Do they think differently? Have they got a viewpoint that will challenge us to change the way that we're perhaps thinking about a problem? Because I always think problems are a bit like diamonds, in that when if you have a diamond, it's cut on many sides, isn't it? And if you have people around you that can see that diamond from all different angles, they can see the problem from all those different angles. So that's what I try to do. I try to get people who work in my team who see that diamond from a different perspective, if that diamond is, the problem that we've got to solve. And so that's what I'm interested in. I'm only interested in the person.
Do you think all businesses now should just say, let's scrap? I mean, I don't know what problems it unleashes. There's probably like talent teams going, well, then we're going to have 10,000 people applying for every job. But do you think that should just be a thing of the past, or it still has value of a bit of both? It's
one I'm really struggling with. Firstly, because my youngest son, Felix, is he's leaving university this year and he's looking for a job and he wants to come into media. and I was talking to actually a few people at the AA about this the other day. You know, look, what is the issue we face with recruitment? And I'm not sure I've got the answer, because we had 2 positions, relatively junior positions at ITV. We had between 300 and 400 people applied for those.
Yeah.
So how do you get to the individual if you don't have a set of criteria that takes large bodies of those out?
Yeah.
And so I think just by
that is a challenge.
Just by the very nature of the volume of people who now want. I mean, when we came into the industry, it was kind of, you sure?
Yeah.
What are you doing that for?
Yeah, that's what Tom George asked me. Like, why do you want to come and work here?
Yeah.
It was quite good.
Yeah, you know.
It is, do you know, but we've spoken about this actually, because there are so many people out there looking for jobs at all different levels.
Yeah.
And you put one post on LinkedIn and, I mean, you're saying, you know, you get 300, like I was speaking to somebody at Spotify the other day, they get thousands. Yeah. And then, unfortunately, then what happens is talent teams have to filter them somehow. And so AI comes in. And then what's AI picking up? The AI is not seeing the individual, it's just seeing a blanket. But I think it's a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge.
Yeah, and I don't think I've got the answer. So it's a good question, and I don't know. I don't know. Look, you know, I don't get to interview for junior roles. I only interview for, so it's much more.
I mean, I think I always, you know, I do the speakers for schools talks, have done for decades almost now. And, you know, I always say to those people about, you know, get work experience of some sort. And the work experience isn't the job itself, it's what it says about you. I mean, I always use the paperboy job. And I say to these kids, like, I don't know if paper boys, girls exist anymore, but if they do, I'm like, you might not think to put that on the CV, but I tell you what that tells me about you is that you're reliable.
You get up
early. You go out in all weathers. Yeah. You know, resilient. That says more to me about you than whatever else. And so I sort of, you know, I feel like that some of those fundamentals are also still very true, which is be curious, work hard, but, you know, but it is now getting through the filters is getting ever harder.
Yeah. It is. I will, you know, in general CVs, not that I see a lot of them these days, but I always like to go to the sidebar. Well, what else have you done? Yeah, that's your career. Yeah. Spot on. Yeah. That's why I'm talking to you. But what else have you done?
Yeah.
What have you done over here?
You?
What makes you you? Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Exactly that. What you know, what do you do during your spare time?
Well, do you know, and actually, because I wanted to come on to the Project 84, actually, because I just, the collaboration you did with Calm, because I think, actually, what makes you, Dags, is that actually everything you do seems to have like you feel everything you're amazing. I mean, I said Superman just from the sports things you've done, but everything you've done, that first million that you raised for, you know, it's like you've got a strong purpose. Do you think that's what's guided you through your career as well, that you've sought those opportunities out? Because where did the Project 84 piece come from?
Oh, that was serendipity. Like, all these things are serendipity.
I like serendipity. That's brought us, mine and me and Marco together to form TheZoo.London.
Exactly, which is, I'm slightly going off to your question here, but why I really think talking to people face to face and just meeting people is so important, because out of those come great things. And if you've just got a Zoom call, it's in for an hour and you do your business and you bugger off, nothing comes of it. The Project 84 is a guy called Simon Gunning, who's the CEO of Calm, and I got to know him. I can't remember how I got to know him, but I think Prince William was doing an art exhibition with him, and he came to see us. I can't quite remember them. Anyway, we were sitting in my office, and he came in with a statistic: 84 men kill themselves every week, men and boys, which is just an extraordinary statistic.
It doesn't get talked about enough. I know it's being talked about more, but it still does not get the headlines.
I'm not sure we got the answer, because it's not getting better. But anyway, he said, he came up with this extraordinary statistic, and Adam and Eve and him have been working on a campaign, and he'd drawn up a 96 sheet and basically had 84 silhouettes of men on it. Yeah. And I thought, actually, because they're black and white silhouettes, they're sort of characterless. So they're just a statistic. How do we take a statistic to be meaningful? And that's when we came up with the idea of getting 84 statues on the top of our studios then in the South Bank.
I remember.
And each statue was dressed in the sort of clothing of an individual who had committed suicide. And the fact that you have 84 statues dressed as people on the top of a studio on the South Bank for the whole of the London, and ultimately in that case the world, to see. And then what we did during that period is, on this morning, we invited the relations, parents of some of the people who represented in those statues to sit on the sofa and talk about what had happened. And it became incredibly moving. And I think probably, look, there's so many people involved in it. I was merely a bit part. But I think that did change the dynamic. It certainly, Simon and I always laugh about this, Simon Gunning, is that one of the things was we wanted to get the government at the time to take suicide seriously. So they appointed a suicide minister. Unfortunately, they appointed Nadine Norris. Two shades of fucking useless. So that wasn't the greatest thing, but it did start the conversation. And as you say, Marco, it has got the conversation going, and I think Calm have gone on to do some really, really, really great work, which we've been part of, thankfully. And I think just meeting people is the spark of genius.
Yeah, and I was hearing that from you when you were saying, because that's, again, you are always out there having conversations. You're interested, you're curious, you want to hear people's stories, and that, as you say, that can just spark
so many things. Yeah. So many things.
If you do things in real life, it's
it is, because look, we're doing podcasts, so people can't see us, but
they can. You've been.
You're on video, mate.
You are. No, actually, that's yours. Yeah. That's yours.
Should have done my hair. But I'm not just looking at your face when I'm talking to you. I'm looking at your arms, the way you sit, the way you're turned, the nuances of everything. I'm not looking at them consciously, I'm looking at them subconsciously. And through that, I'm able to read, or at least get some understanding of whether you're interested, whether you're bored, whether you're engaged, whether you're worried, whether... If I just have your face on a Zoom screen with 15 other faces, I've got no idea what's going on. And, one of the great things about humans is their ability to communicate across multiple different levels, through their eyes, through their lips, through their smell, through their facial expressions, through the way they sit. And that's a really, really sophisticated thing that's been built up over millennium. And kind of what we're doing is we're taking that away when we're on Zoom calls and saying one of the most sophisticated ways of communicating is being taken away from us. And I think that is a very, very, very dangerous and difficult position to go into, particularly if we're in the area of communication. If
I can, just to give you a little bit of a platform for ITV, because again, I'm thinking of like the power of TV in terms of, using the studios for back to Project 84, but then actually on the sofa being able to talk about it. The power. We should talk about Mr. Bates.
Oh yeah.
Shouldn't we really? We have.
It's up for. It's just being nominated for some.
With loads of nominations, so I've not kept up with them.
It's
but I mean, again, the power of TV, because it's storytelling. It's storytelling, isn't it?
100%. We've been telling stories, since we sat around the fire roasting mammoths. And
always a bit chewy after.
The bones are so difficult to eat, aren't they? And I think the art of telling a good story and keeping you entertained must never be lost. And I think Mr. Bates, that story, I'm repeating a lot of what's been said before, but that story had been told for a number of years through Computer Weekly, who were the original ones who exposed it, through to Private Eye and the like, and some of the national press. But what brought it to life was bringing the characters involved to life, and TV did that. So instead of Mr. Bates being a line in a newspaper article or a magazine, Mr. Bates was graphic. He was on the screen. He had a character. You saw some of the other, sub postmasters, and you bought into them.
You felt for them.
You were watching them. You were, doing that thing, watching their very move. That's a great thing about an actor. They don't just use their eyes and their mouth. They use every part of their body to communicate. And we were watching that, and they brought all the characters to life. And the story itself is such a powerful story of complete wrong-uns, and the state behaving badly, that it really resonated. I mean, the thing about it is, as you well know, it wasn't a money-making venture for ITV. It was only 4 1-hours, and it doesn't have great global distribution. Let's be honest, if you say sub-postmaster to someone in America, they're going to go, what, in a submarine? What are you doing?
Yeah. But again, though, how great that you work for an organisation that can, it's an incredible thing. We are going to be running out of time shortly, but I knew we'd completely go off script. We must ask you, though, because we do ask it each week, what was your biggest fuck up? And more importantly, what did you learn from it? Or have you never had any?
No. It's a consistent theme in my life. I think my biggest fuck up was believing I was Billy Big Pants. I talked earlier about going bankrupt.
Actually, yes.
I made a lot of money, and I really thought I was the bee's knees. Look, I'm 26.
Sold my company.
Yeah. Billy Big Pants. And I thought, right, well, I won't go into all the details. I'm going to do it all. I'm going to do it this way, do it that way. And within 18 months, I was bankrupt. I walked out of my house, 75 Yeldon Road, and handed the keys to the bailiff. And that was that. And I was homeless, in inverted commas. I went and slept on I wasn't homeless. I slept on a mate's sofa. But also, I would say that at that moment, it was one of the happiest moments of my life because I was utterly free. I had nothing, not a bean to my name. I'd asked my dad for money. He said no, which is good on him. Yeah. Well done him. And I was utterly free. It didn't matter whether I turned left or right. I was going forward.
Wow.
And that's what I mean about adversity, is it actually frees you. It doesn't stop you. If you step into it, you're going to go to exciting places. If you shy away from it, you're going to stay where you are. And, in that case, I was forced to step forward because I had no choice. But I remember standing outside there going, fuck me, this is actually quite fun.
God, I mean, yeah.
I know it sounds odd, but genuinely, I had a couple of bags. In those days, I didn't have wheels. I put them over my shoulders and walked down Fulham Palace Road, looking for somewhere to go and stay.
I used to live off Fulham Palace Road. Brings back memories.
Yeah.
But what would, like, not to be too literal about our show, but clearly some stuff went on during that period. Like, what did you take? What was the learning from that? Like, without going, you don't have to go into all the details.
But I mean, in terms of, don't be a cock.
Well,
that was the biggest learning.
I guess where did you go wrong in how you approach stuff?
I just got arrogant. I was young. I just got arrogant. I thought, I can do this. Is all you lot are idiots. I don't need to listen to you. I can do it all myself. I just got arrogant. Really, is the truth.
Reckless,
and a bit. Reckless is probably a good word. I just got arrogant and thought that I could do it all, and everybody else is wrong.
How long have you been at ITV now?
14 years. Long time. Long as I've been anywhere.
Yeah.
So, what have you had any kind of hacks or maybe advice that have kept you at the top? Let's just call it that, whether you want to call it that or not, but kept you at the top for all of those years and kept you sane.
Yeah. I think listen to The Smallest Guy, or girl, guy being a generic term. There was a book written, which actually Mark Howley gave to me, called E! Many years ago, which is a book about the ad industry. It was a satirical book based on emails. So the whole story was emails. And it was based on McCann's and the Coca. I think it was based on McCann's, the Coca-Cola account. And the guy who came up with the best idea was a sort of junior exec in Norway, and they all tried to ignore him. And eventually that idea came through, and it became the big idea for Coke. It's fictional, but what that satirical book taught me was always listen to the little person. And when I say the little person, I mean the person who's got an idea and isn't often heard.
Yes.
So walk round. This is why I love the office.
Yeah.
Walk around the office, sit at someone's desk, going, "What are you doing? Oh, that's quite interesting. How do you think that?" And they will all, and then you get chatting to them, and they say, "Well, what do you want to do? Well, what's bugging you?" What? And they will always have an idea. And quite often it's 100% correct, because they will see it from a different angle to you, because they're doing their job and you're doing your job. So I think always listen to the little guy, because
that's also like staying connected, isn't it? To not living in your own bubble the whole time, and just having those influences.
Yeah.
And the listen. I think that's something that you're curious and you listen and you want to have the ideas. But, there's that whole thing of, the most intelligent person in the room is not the one that speaks the most.
No,
and actually, right. I think there's a
We're
lesson.
All buggered.
We talk quite a lot. We have to really make sure that we don't talk too much. And I suppose because you've had such a good and long career and so successful, is there a particular piece of advice that has sat with you? You mentioned Fru before, the guru, but is there something that's also guided your career where you think back to a piece of advice that you were given?
Oh, there's so many. I've never, I know this podcast called Mentor, but I've never really had a mentor. I've just had loads of people who've influenced me. Do you see what I mean? So that, all the way from sort of Archie Norman, who was our chair at ITV, who I thought was an absolutely amazingly brilliant person, Fru Hazlitt, obviously Kelly Williams, who I work with now. They all do. But if there was one moment which I suppose taught me what good advertising is in its simplest form, and I tell this story to my sales team. There was a lady called Rebecca Singleton, and many people won't know her. She was the marketing director of Morrisons, and the Morrisons head office, I'm going back a few years, it may have moved, is in Bradford. And it's next to the Hovis bakery in an industrial street. And I was talking to Rebecca saying, "Oh, you could do this." This was in BGT with Morrisons. "You could do this, you could do that. Digitally, you can do this. Digitally, you can do that. Da 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 da." And she said, "Shut the fuck up, Daggers." I went, "Oh, okay." She said, "Come with me." We were quite chummy. Come with me. And she took me to it was a glass office. She said, and the glass office looked at lines of Victorian terraced houses, one up, one down, in poor state. Yeah. And she said, "They are my customers. Do you think they give a fuck about what you're talking about?" I went, "No." She said, "Remember this. I feed them, you entertain them. Where those two things meet, that's the magic. Let's see if we can find that magic." Wow. And I just thought it was such a simple way to put it, rather than me waffling on. I thought, it's simple.
But that's the thing for our whole industry, isn't it? Is remember who's out there that we're actually
living in our London bubble.
Yeah, that's right.
Get out. Well, but I think we've spoken about this before. It's about with listening, but actually, to the customer, to the client. Everyone that gets that right is successful, and I think it's about making sure that you don't lose sight of that. I mean, I suppose at that point you'd almost lost sight of the end goal. You had something you thought you were selling, but actually mismatched with what the end goal was.
I was selling what we were doing. Really, what I should have been doing is thinking, well, what is that customer doing? They're sitting on their sofa. It's their Saturday night. They're watching Britain's Got Talent. It's their favourite show. They're with their family or a loved one or a flatmate or whatever it is. And, what transpired is, a very simple idea is that we'd do BGT Saturday night meal deals.
Yes.
Because, you get your litre of Coke. I'm not trying to make everything some LHF, but a litre of Coke, let's call it Diet Coke, shall we, in modern times. Probably not in Bradford, but a litre of Coke and food for the family to sit there to watch telly. Yeah. That's what came out of it.
Yes.
Yeah. And we branded it BGT and made it the BGT special deal that people go in and it related to, and you could win prizes to go onto BGT. So it became something that wasn't an ad. Well, I mean, it was an ad campaign, of course it was, but it was much better than that because it sat on there.
Was the fabric of the show, wasn't it? Like part became integrated.
Yeah. You feed and entertain.
But I think that is a thing for all salespeople is. Don't just sell a product, sell what the benefit of the product is. It's sort of 101, isn't it? But, I mean, our industry, especially in the sort of ad tech part of it, is, has a big problem with
completely. I think we've forgotten that you've heard me say this, Rachel. I know you have, but when we're looking at data, what we forget is every single piece of data is a human.
Yeah.
And that human is much like you, and much like me, much like Marco. Everyone is an individual, so you've got to find out what is the human connection between those individuals. What is it that connects them to the product? Not they are consumers of this or they must be consumers of that, because that's not often it. Because the connection that you have with the brand is largely emotional. You know, we only really need one pair of shoes, but we probably have 15. And you have 15 because your emotions got better of your logic, and you've gone out and said, well, I'm going to buy this pair because I like them.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? You don't need them.
Yeah, exactly.
You can wear, you've got some very nice trainers there. I know I can wear these Converse on anything, but I've got 6 different colours. Why?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we live in that world, don't we, of marketing and advertising and branding, and
so.
we buy into that. You're buying into as much an experience as you are a pair of shoes, or what it says about you. And I think we are really running out of time. And
sorry.
But because we also ask, like, if you know any regrets, and you mean even turning Bankrupt, you said, you know, you turn that into actually the most.
I feel like there's going to be a lot of positivity in this.
The most positive thing. But
got any
have you actually?
Oh, look, I've got terrible regrets in that. I guess. Do you know what? I wake up every morning going, did I really say that? Did I really do that? Is that called...
Coming on this podcast, is that...
I'm going to get out of this podcast and go, what did I say that for you? Oh,
what is that called when you get that feeling in the morning? It's got a name.
Fear. No.
The fear, yeah.
The fear.
You get the fear.
Like the walk of shame. Yeah. But... so I have constant regrets. I don't really have any big regrets, and I've been very, you know, I do say this, that I've been incredibly fortunate in my life to be able to do things I've done, you know, and have the job I have, you know, and I do thank my lucky stars because, you know, it's not all down to me. It's down to lots of people who've worked with me. It's down to luck. It's down to all sorts of different things. So, you know, I don't have any regrets because I think it would be letting everybody else down. And I'm really keen that I enjoy what I've got.
Yeah, and I think that's what comes across again about you. You're so passionate about what you do. And that really comes across because, look, it is tough. It's tough at the top, but you just ooze the fact that I think you make a bit of your own luck as well.
Yeah,
you know,
I'd agree.
You've got to put yourself in the way of luck.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a really brilliant piece of advice that you've given.
And positive, just being positive, and you know, I think when things are tough and the pressure's on, it's very easy to fall back into sort of negativity and who's not doing what they should be doing or whatever. But I think keeping that sort of positive mindset is vital to get through those tough times.
Yeah.
No, oh God, look, you know, positive mindset will get you through life.
Yeah, I think
it will get you through life. It'll make you happy.
Yeah,
and that's easy to say, and there's lots of people who don't have that. But and this is me getting a bit what's the right word? Is I think in society and somewhat in our business, there's too much victimhood. Stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. It's not positive.
Yeah.
It won't get you anywhere. It will get you nowhere.
Yeah.
So flip that on its head and use whatever adversity you're experiencing or facing as your launch pad to something greater, not something that's going to hold you back.
Yeah.
And that way you will, without a shadow of doubt, get over it, be stronger, be better, and be happier.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all face adversities at some point in time. That is just a factor of life.
Yeah.
You as an individual, if you've got it, is not exceptional. We all do.
Well,
so it's not unique, is it?
I mean, that is a perfect place.
It is. Although, can I just say one thing? Because I
go
can't
on,
keep
go on.
Well, no. One of my best pieces of advice, because I know you've never asked me, Marco.
Oh, what is it? Come on, Rach.
Well, do you know what it was? It was be a radiator, not a drain.
Yeah.
And it is really, really simple. And in life, just if you can have that mindset, it'll get you far.
Have you ever heard Sherry Crammond, marketing director of M&S, great friend of mine? She always says everybody lightens up a room some when they leave, some when they arrive.
Oh, that is a really good one to end on.
I do like that.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's a
great.
good
Oh, that is great. Oh, Dags, thank you. Well,
Thank
you
you
light
so
up the
much.
room, Dags,
Yeah,
completely. And when you walk out, we're going to...
Yeah, you're going to delete.
You've left me with Marco. Oh, God. We'll try. We'll try our best. But listen, thank you so much, Dags.
Wow.
Honestly,
Yeah, cheers.
brilliant.
That's amazing.
It's a great privilege to talk to you, so thank you very much.
No, thank
you.
you. Nearly at the end, Marco, and we always like to end on a final piece of advice. And this is actually a quote from Richard Curtis, and I think it really sits beautifully with what Dags has spoken about actually doing something. He's done an awful lot in his career, and I think this is a great one to end on.
read it?
Marco. Yeah,
Shall I
read it,
read it?
Marco.
Okay,
you read
okay,
it.
So, Richard Curtis. So, none of us should ever underestimate our ability to change people's lives. There is a direct cause and effect of what we do here and what happens there. But if you want to help, you have to actually do something. You can't just talk about it. My motto is, if you want to make things happen, you have to make things. Create an object, a slogan, a film, a little book, a badge, a hashtag, a Red Nose Day. Make something so wonderful that it captures people's hearts and minds so they can't help but be dragged in and help. And even better, make it funny too. That's all I've ever done.
I think that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
That's nice, isn't it?
It is. That's really good. But that is all we've got time for. Don't forget, we love to hear about your mentors and your advice. A Mentor is a Viral Tribe entertainment production.
And don't forget to give us a follow on Apple Podcasts and, of course, on Spotify. And join us next week for more pearls of wisdom from Mentor.